I've never really thought I'd end up here, but life throws these crazy curveballs when you least expect them. My name's Mark, and I've been married to Lisa for about 7 years now. We met in college, and honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. She was the kind of woman who always knew what to say, how to look at you with those piercing blue eyes, and she had this attitude like she was the smartest person in the room, bitchy at times, but charming enough to get away with it. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Our relationship had its ups and downs, typical stuff, arguments about money, her constant eye-rolling when I tried to talk about my job, that kind of thing. But we had a shared life, a house in a decent neighborhood, and I was running for school board. I got involved in local politics, thought I could make a difference for our community, and Lisa was supportive. At least, she pretended to be. I always thought she was just a bit of a stress case, but it didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. About 3 months ago, I started noticing some weird things, small stuff. She was suddenly more distant, secretive even. Her phone was always face down. She'd come home late from meetings that I couldn't get her to explain properly. She was also spending a lot of time online, more than usual, and she was incredibly defensive whenever I asked what she was doing. It was almost like she was trying to hide something, but I figured I was just paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking it. After all, she had every right to her privacy, right? But then things escalated. I found receipts, little things like Starbucks trips, a hotel bill from a nearby city. Nothing huge, but enough to make me suspicious. I also noticed she was wearing different perfume than usual, and she'd clean her phone obsessively whenever I got close. I tried to brush it off, but this nagging feeling kept growing. I told myself, she's probably just stressed. Maybe she's cheating on me, but maybe she's not. I need to find out for sure. And that's where I started digging. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. The worst part was that I'd already been involved in my campaign for school board, and Lisa had been supportive at first. But lately, she was bitchy about my busy schedule, accusing me of neglecting her, even though I was working my ass off trying to get elected. It all felt like a prelude to something big, something I wasn't prepared for. Then last week, I came home early from a campaign event. I wasn't feeling great, and I thought I'd surprise her, maybe catch her off guard. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The house was eerily quiet, and her purse was gone. That was strange because she always left her purse on the kitchen table. I checked the bedroom and saw her phone lying face down on the nightstand. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to just leave it be, but the other part knew I had to see what was really going on. I picked up her phone, and that's when I saw it. A string of messages between her and her campaign finance director, Michael. His name is an older guy, well into his 50s. They were talking about meetings, plans, and then stuff that made my stomach turn. Flirty, suggestive, even downright inappropriate. I saw messages about meeting up, secrets, and even her inviting him over for a little fun. My hands were trembling. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This was a different level of betrayal. She was cheating on me with someone I trusted to help my campaign, my own wife, lying right to my face. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind kept racing, trying to process how this could happen. All those fights, all her bitchy attitude when I was just trying to do something meaningful. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around, fucking my campaign finance director during my run for the school board. It was sickening, honestly. I'd poured so much into this campaign, and I'd always thought Lisa was supportive, maybe a little jealous of the attention I was getting. But no, she was busy betraying me in the worst way possible. I sat there for what felt like forever, staring at the screen, feeling like my entire world was crashing down. I didn't sleep that night, just kept replaying everything, her lies, her sneers, the secret meetings. I was angry, devastated, confused. I thought I knew her, thought we had something real. Turns out all those years she'd been hiding this side of herself. And the worst part, I had no idea how long she'd been doing it or how many other lies she'd told me. It was pure torture, and I knew I had to do something. I just didn't know what yet. After I found out about Lisa and Michael, everything felt like a giant mess in my head. I couldn't focus on the campaign anymore, not that I wanted to anymore. My mind kept circling back to the betrayal, the fact that she'd been sneaking around with someone I trusted, and worse, that she'd been lying to me for months. The rage was building up, but so was this bitter sense of helplessness. I didn't know what to do next. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to jump into chaos without knowing what was on the other side. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment I saw her messages, trying to figure out if I'd missed any hints before. Honestly, looking back, there were tiny signs I'd ignored. Her phone always being close, her changing the subject when I asked about her meetings, her defensive attitude. Now I saw it all clearly. But at the time, I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. Now I knew better. She was cheating and lying, and I felt like an idiot for missing all of it. The next morning, I decided I couldn't just confront her without evidence. I needed to catch her in the act if I was going to do something, so I set up a little plan. I installed a hidden camera in the living room, nothing overt, just enough to record if she was sneaking around or meeting someone. I also made sure I had her phone with me at all times, just in case she slipped up. The plan was simple: catch her red-handed or get proof I could use to confront her. That day, I played it cool. I went about my usual routine, pretending everything was normal. Inside, I was a mess, nervous, angry, full of betrayal. I kept checking the camera feed on my phone, waiting for something to happen. Hours went by and nothing. I started thinking maybe I was overreacting, that she was just stressed out about her bitchy attitude and the fight for the campaign. Maybe I jumped to conclusions. And then it happened. Around 8 p.m., I saw her leave the house in a rush, looking over her shoulder like she was trying to avoid someone. I watched her get into her car and her phone buzzed a few times. I couldn't see who was calling or texting, but I knew it was her. She drove off without even telling me. My stomach twisted. She was hiding something. I waited a little longer, then grabbed her purse from the hall closet, just to check if she had any receipts or evidence inside. What I found inside was almost worse than the messages. There was a small, crumpled piece of paper with a hotel address and a time, something she'd scribbled quickly, probably to remember. No doubt she was meeting Michael somewhere private. I also found her lipstick in the purse, different from the usual shade she wore. It was all adding up. I knew she was cheating, and I had proof now, enough to blow everything apart. I started to feel sick, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I had to confront her. I didn't want to, not really, but I knew I had no choice. My heart pounding, I waited for her to come back. When she finally did, I was standing in the doorway, eyes locked on her like a hawk. She looked surprised, but that bitchy attitude was still there, even if she was trying to hide it. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice tight. She shrugged, trying to act casual. "Just out." "Why?" "You know exactly why," I said. "I saw your messages. I saw the hotel address you scribbled down. Who is he, Lisa? Tell me the truth." Her face twisted and she started lying immediately. "You're crazy. That's just work stuff. You're overthinking everything. I don't know what you're talking about." I couldn't believe her. She was lying so easily, like she didn't care that I was holding evidence in my hand. I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. How many times had I trusted her? How much had she been lying to me? It all hit me like a wave. I wanted to lash out, scream, but I kept my composure. I just looked at her and said, "You're done. I know everything. You've been cheating on me with Michael, haven't you?" She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "Whatever, Mark, you're just jealous. You're so obsessed with that stupid campaign you don't even see what's really going on. I don't have time for your bullshit." That's when I realized her bitchy, manipulative side was even worse than I thought. She was good at lying, good at making me doubt myself. But I had proof now, and I knew this wasn't going to end well if I didn't do something. I felt the tears pricking my eyes, but I kept my voice steady. "No more lies. I'm done with this. You're not just a cheating wife, you're a liar and a manipulator. I can't do this anymore." The aftermath of that night was a blur. I kicked her out the next morning, and she left with that same bitchy smirk, telling me I was overreacting, that I was crazy. But I knew better. I knew she'd been cheating on me for months, maybe longer, and lying every step of the way. It hurt worse than I ever thought possible. The trust was gone, and I was left with a hollow feeling inside that wouldn't go away. I learned a lot from this, that sometimes people hide who they really are behind a mask, and no matter how much you want to believe in them, the truth will always come out. I don't know if I'll ever fully get over it, but one thing's clear. I'll never be blind to the signs again. The days that followed were some of the most brutal I've ever experienced. After kicking her out, I stayed in that empty house, feeling like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every corner seemed to echo with memories, and every time I saw her things packed in boxes, it hit me like a punch in the gut. I kept replaying her lies, her sneers, the way she'd brush off my questions like I was some kind of paranoid fool. But I was. I had the proof, and now I knew the full extent of her betrayal. Honestly, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, disappointment, and a deep sense of betrayal. I thought I knew her, thought I had a partner I could trust. Instead, I found out she was a manipulative, lying piece of work who'd been sneaking around with my campaign finance director, Michael, and it wasn't just a fling. From the messages, it looked like they'd been at it for a while, probably since the start of my campaign. She'd been playing me from behind the scenes, acting like she cared, acting like she was supportive. Meanwhile, she was screwing someone else and lying to my face. I had to take some time to process everything. I didn't want to jump into any rash decisions. So I started thinking about what my next move was. I couldn't just let her walk away scot-free after everything she'd done. She had lied so much, manipulated me, and betrayed my trust, not just as a wife but as someone I genuinely cared about. I knew I had to get some kind of revenge, not in a petty way, but to make her see that she couldn't get away with this. She didn't just cheat, she tore my world apart. I began planning. I didn't want her to think she'd won or that she could just move on like nothing happened. I started gathering evidence, not just her messages and hotel receipts, but also looking into her phone records, her online activity. I wanted her to see that I knew everything. I wanted her to realize that the mask she'd been hiding behind had been ripped off completely. I also knew I had to be smart about it. I couldn't just blow everything up randomly. I needed to make sure she felt the full weight of her betrayal. Meanwhile, her friends and family started calling. Some were sympathetic, telling me I deserved better. Others accused me of being too controlling, too paranoid. That only fueled my resolve. I wanted her to experience some of the chaos she'd caused me, but I also wanted her to understand the damage she'd done. I was figuring out how to do that in a way that would hit her hardest, an emotional, calculated blow. I wasn't interested in petty revenge or revenge that would ruin my future, just enough to make her realize the extent of her betrayal and maybe teach her some kind of lesson. One night, I sat down and drafted a plan. It was cold, calculated, but necessary. I'd leave the messages, photos, and other evidence I'd collected in a sealed envelope, then send it anonymously to her friends and family, making sure she'd find out that way. I knew she loved her reputation, and I figured this would hurt her more than any screaming match. I'd also carefully monitor her reactions afterward, see if she tried to come back, or if she'd start spinning more lies to cover her tracks. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in this emotional limbo. I needed to confront her directly, face her one last time, and hear her lie to my face again. That moment came unexpectedly. About a week after she moved out, she called me, just one call, no warning. Her voice was agitated, defensive. She kept insisting she was misunderstood, that everything was just work stuff, and that I was overreacting. She even had the nerve to say she was tired of the accusations, tired of me freaking out over nothing. That was a lie. She knew exactly what she'd done. I told her I'd had enough, that I knew everything, that I had proof she was cheating with Michael, that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. Her reaction was classic Lisa, trying to act like I was crazy, calling me paranoid, saying I was making a huge deal out of nothing. But I was done listening to her bullshit. I told her to leave me alone, that I wanted no contact. That was the last straw. I refused to be her punching bag or her backup plan anymore. In a strange way, I felt a little relief after that call. I'd finally taken control of the situation, even if it was painful. It hurt to realize she'd been lying to me for so long, but at least now I knew the truth. I also knew that this wasn't just about the affair. It was about the fact that she was manipulative, selfish, and willing to destroy our marriage for some fleeting sex and ego boost. And the worst part, I had to accept that I might never truly get closure, that she'd keep lying, keep hiding her secrets, and I'd never really know how deep her deception went. What I've learned so far is that people can hide who they really are for a long time before the truth comes out. You think you know someone, but deep down, they might be someone entirely different. And when that happens, it shatters everything you believed in. Sometimes the best thing you can do is cut your losses, pick up the pieces, and move forward, however messy that might be. The pain of betrayal is real, but so is the possibility of rebuilding, even if it's hard to see right now. The days after that last confrontation were a blur. I didn't want to see her, hear her, or even think about her. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that smug look she always had when she thought she was getting away with something. The betrayal ran so deep, I felt like I was drowning in it. I started questioning everything about us, what I missed, what I ignored, how I could have been so blind. But mostly I was furious. Furious at her for the lies, for the betrayal, for treating my trust like it was nothing. I threw myself into working on the campaign to keep busy. Maybe if I focused on something meaningful, I could drown out the pain. But honestly, it was just a distraction. Every phone call, every meeting, I was half-hearted. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been played for a fool. I'd given her everything, my love, my loyalty, my future, and she'd spit on it. That realization made my blood boil. I wasn't just hurt. I was angry at how easily she'd manipulated me, how she'd lied right in my face. In the middle of this chaos, I decided I needed to do one more thing. I wasn't just going to let her walk away with her secrets. I had to make her see that she'd messed with the wrong guy. I reached out to a private investigator I'd known from some old cases. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to get some solid proof of her current whereabouts, her new life, whatever that was. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive husband who was going to take her lies anymore. I needed her to feel the heat, to understand that I was serious. While waiting for the PI to do his job, I kept digging into her phone records. I found a pattern. She'd been texting Michael almost daily, even after she moved out. They had secret code words, inside jokes, plans to meet up again. It was all right there on her phone bill. It made me sick, knowing she'd been planning this behind my back. The worst part was that she'd always been so bitchy, so dismissive of my concerns, yet it was her scheming, her lies, that had destroyed us. Finally, a week later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. The investigator had tracked her to a little motel just outside town. She'd gone there with Michael, just like I suspected. I drove over immediately, heart pounding in my chest. When I pulled up, I saw her sitting outside on the porch, smoking a cigarette, looking relaxed, like she didn't have a care in the world. I took a deep breath and walked over, feeling every ounce of anger boiling inside me. She saw me coming and immediately tried to put on her usual bitchy smirk. "What are you doing here, Mark?" she snapped, acting like I was bothering her. But her eyes betrayed her. She was nervous, guilty. I didn't say a word. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording her sitting there, her smoking, her smug expression. I wanted her to see that I had the proof, the evidence of her betrayal right in my hand. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I was finally in control. "Lisa," I said calmly but firmly, "I know about this. I know you've been with Michael. I've got the videos, the receipts, everything. You thought you could hide it, but I caught you. You lied to my face for months, and now you're caught red-handed. Do you want to tell me what the hell is going on?" She looked surprised, then furious. "You're crazy," she spat. "This is all a lie. You're just jealous, paranoid, and delusional. I don't know what you're talking about." I shook my head. "No, Lisa, I have the proof. You can deny it all you want, but that right here is the end of it. I'm tired of your lies, tired of being played. You've been screwing my campaign finance director, and I want you to know I won't stand for it." Her eyes widened, then she started crying fake tears. I knew that much. "You don't understand," she whined. "Michael meant nothing. I was just stressed, and he's been there for me. It's not what you think. You're overreacting." I started recording her again, my hands trembling with rage. "You're full of shit." So I've seen the messages, I've seen the hotel receipts. You're done, you've betrayed me in every way possible, and you can keep lying, but I'm done playing your game. She looked helpless then, her facade cracking just enough. Fine, she finally whispered, voice trembling. You want the truth? Yes, I've been seeing him. I'm tired of pretending, but it's not like you're perfect. You've been so busy with your stupid campaign, you don't even notice what I'm going through. Maybe I needed someone who actually cared. That hit me hard. Not because I hadn't suspected it, but because hearing her say it out loud made everything worse. I was devastated, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. Her words, her attitude, they proved how much she'd been manipulating the whole situation, making me feel guilty while she was out screwing around. I left her sitting there, still smoking, still acting like she was the victim. I knew then that this chapter was over. There was no saving what we had left, no fixing her lies. I got in my car and drove home, still recording everything, knowing I'd use it to end this once and for all. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage anymore, I was fighting for my sanity. Whatever was left of me, I wasn't going down without a fight. The drive back home was like sitting in a storm I couldn't escape. Every mile I got further away from that motel, the more I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. I kept replaying the last few hours, the confrontation, the recording, her pathetic excuses. It was like I'd been living in this bubble of denial, and now that it burst, I was left with this raw, bleeding truth. She'd been screwing my campaign finance director, lying to my face and manipulating me for her own selfish reasons. All the while, I'd been trying to do something meaningful, and she was out there tearing everything apart. The worst part, as much as I wanted to feel victorious, I just felt empty. There was this gnawing ache inside, the kind that only betrayal can cause. I'd trusted her more than anyone, and she'd shattered that trust like it was nothing. I kept thinking about our life together, the good times, the fights, the promises she broke. How could she do this? How could she lie to me for so long, pretend she cared, then turn around and screw someone I trusted? It's a question I'll probably never fully answer, but I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it, not entirely. When I finally got home, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. I had the evidence, but I wasn't sure what to do with it. Part of me wanted to blast her, to humiliate her publicly, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. Honestly, I just wanted her to feel the pain she'd put me through, to realize that her actions had consequences. So I started drafting a message, a kind of final letter, something that would make her see the damage she'd done without turning into some vengeful lunatic. I didn't want to just confront her with the proof right away. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. I thought about sending the evidence anonymously to her friends, her family, even the campaign team. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some fool anymore. I was the one holding all the cards now, but I also knew I'd have to face her eventually. I had to tell her what I'd seen, what I knew, and how I felt. That night I finally gathered the courage to call her. I waited until everything was quiet, then dialed her number. When she answered, her voice was laced with that familiar dismissiveness. What do you want, Mark? I took a deep breath. I saw her, Lisa. I caught her with Michael. I have everything on video. Don't even deny it anymore. I know what you've been doing, and I know you lied to me for months. There was silence on the other end. Then she spat out, "You're crazy. You're just paranoid. You don't know what you're talking about." I pressed on. "No, Lisa, I have the proof. It's over. You can lie, you can deny, but I've got everything documented. I want you to understand you're done here. I'm not going to pretend anymore. You're a lying, manipulative bitch who thought she could get away with everything." She yelled back, "You're just jealous. You're insecure. I didn't do anything wrong. It's your fault for always accusing me for being so controlling." That's when I realized she was never going to admit the truth. She'd keep lying, keep spinning her stories, and I'd be stuck in this nightmare forever if I let her. I knew I had to cut the cord. I told her that I never wanted to see her again, that I was done playing her games. I hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and despair. I'd finally said what I needed to say, but the hollow ache inside wouldn't go away. I also started making arrangements. I contacted a lawyer, looked into what it would take to divorce her. I knew I couldn't stay with someone who'd betrayed me this deeply. It wasn't just about losing trust. It was about protecting myself from her further manipulation. I had to rebuild my life, my sense of self, and that meant severing everything that reminded me of her. Looking back, I see now how much I let her walk all over me. I was so caught up in the idea of us, the life I thought we had, that I ignored all the signs. The bitchy attitude, the secretiveness, the late nights, those were all red flags I refused to see, but sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to realize what's really going on. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also forces you to examine what truly matters. Trust isn't given lightly anymore, and I've come to understand that sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself. Now, I'm just trying to piece myself back together, learning how to trust again, how to forgive myself for the times I ignored what my gut was screaming. I can't say I'm fully healed, but I know one thing for sure. I'm done with her, and I refuse to let her define my future. The road ahead is uncertain, but it's mine to walk now. It's been about a month since I kicked her out and started sorting through everything. Honestly, I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even some sort of closure, but what I mostly feel is a deep, gnawing emptiness. It's like all the trust I once had in her, hell, in the idea of us, just evaporated overnight. I keep replaying all those moments when I was blind, when I refused to see the signs, telling myself I should have known better. But now, I realize that sometimes people hide who they really are so well that you almost can't recognize them until it's too late. The hardest part has been forgiving myself. I keep asking why I didn't see it sooner, why I let her manipulate me for so long. But I also understand that I wasn't just naive, I was in love. And love can blind you to reality. I also learned that betrayal doesn't just crush your trust, it shatters your sense of self. You start questioning everything. But over time, I've come to accept that some things are beyond my control. What I can control now is how I rebuild myself. I've since started therapy. It's been a long process, but talking to someone helps put things into perspective. I'm learning to let go of the anger at her, at myself, and focus on healing. The truth is, I still miss the good times, the person I thought she was. But I also remind myself that those memories were built on lies. The Lisa I loved was just a mask she wore to hide her real self. Now, I see her for what she really is, and I realize I deserve better. Divorce is in process, and I've come to terms with the fact that I'm better off without her. I don't need someone who manipulates, lies, and cheats. I want a future where I can trust again, where I can be honest and loved for who I am, not for a version of me she could lie to. I know it's going to take time, but I'm determined to rebuild my life. I've started focusing on my work, reconnecting with friends, and rediscovering what makes me happy outside of her shadow. Looking back, I can say that this whole ordeal has been a brutal lesson in trust and self-respect. I learned that betrayal can come from the people you least expect, and it's how you respond that defines you. I learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and refusing to let someone destroy your peace. And I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance to start over. So to anyone reading this, you might be going through something similar right now. My biggest piece of advice is this: trust your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Confront it head on, gather evidence if you need to, because once the truth comes out, there's no going back. The pain will hurt, yes, but it's also the catalyst for growth. You'll come out stronger, wiser, and more aware of what you truly deserve. Life moves on, and so will you. Just hold on to that hope, even when it seems impossible, because in the end, your happiness is worth fighting for.